Hello and welcome to Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, folktales, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I am your host, Annabelle. There she is again. I'm here, baby. It is storming today. I'm recording this on the new moon solar eclipse. So you're listening to this in the future. Hello, future. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And if you're not, that's also okay, because guess what, baby? It's time for story time. It's story time. I recommend getting yourself a beverageino, perhaps some tea, perhaps some water, perhaps, I don't know, what do the kids drink now? Cocktails? I don't know, but settle in. I want to tell you that I'm proud of you. Do you know how hard it is to be here on planet Earth sometimes while other human beings are being assholes? It's fucking hard, and I'm so proud of you for showing up and doing the damn thing. You being here on Earth is doing so much. So I thank you and I congratulate you, and I'm here to remind you, you're nailing it, kid. You're fucking nailing it. This is what I tell myself every day, and I'm going to tell it to you too. All right? All right. So, what world are we going to today? I can't wait. I have selected a series of Slavic tales. Some are very broad in saying they're just Slavic. Some are more region specific. But what does that mean? When I say Slavic, what does that mean? Single baked bean? What does it mean? I will tell you what it means. Thank you so much for asking. The term Slavic is of, relating to, or characteristic of the Slavs or their languages. Let's be specific. This is the branch of Indo-European languages, and this family includes Belarusian, Bulgarian, Czech, Polish, Serbian, Croatian, Slovene, Russian, Ukrainian, and I think Slovak. Is Slovene and Slovak different? Let's Google it. Slovene and Slovak. Too bad Bisaraha isn't here. My good friend Bisaraha is half Slovakian. Slovak belongs among Western Slavic languages. Slovenian is a South Slavic language. There used to be a continuum more than 1,000 years ago, but in the whole second millennium, Slovaks and Slovenes have been separated by the German and Hungarian speakers. That is fascinating. Well, I'm pretty sure that the term Slavic also refers to the Slovakian people. Pretty sure. Okay, there's my little fun history lesson. And now we're gonna start with story number 1. I hand-picked this as a gift to my good friend who I just mentioned, Bisaraha Teodora Melekova is my very good friend. And she is half Slovakian, and she loves pearls. She's a pearl girl. And so we are going to read a Slavic folktale called Tears of Pearls. Also, ding, 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 I want to bring up that in the last fairy tale I told, which was the, was it the magic ring? No, I think it was the one before the magic ring, What the Rose Did to the Cypress, part 2. Have you guys ever seen the movie Hot Shots Part 2? I'm telling you, you have to watch it. It's so visionary. Okay, wait. I'm so sorry. I think if I'm not mistaken, in What the Rose Did to the Cypress, the homeboy, the prince, found this Peri, this kind of like demon fairy princess, and she cried pearls, and that was because she was punished into damnation. If you haven't listened, it's worth a listen. There's just too much to summarize, but the moral of the story is there is a princess with magical powers and she cries pearls, and it's very special. Okay, so here we are. We are embarking on the tale known as Tears of Pearls. Once upon a time, there lived a very rich widow with whom lived 3 children, a handsome stepson, his sister, who was marvelously beautiful, and her own daughter, passably good-looking. Right on. You know what? I kind of love the candid honesty. It's there is something about this that is very Eastern European to me. Yeah, 2 of them were hot and one of them was mid. Okay, great. All 3 children lived under the same roof, but as it is often the case where there are step-parents, they were treated differently. The lady's own daughter was bad-tempered, disobedient, vain, and of a telltale disposition. Yet she was made much of. She was praised and caressed. The stepchildren were treated very harshly. The boy, who was kind-hearted and obliging, was made to do all sorts of hard and unpleasant work. He was constantly scolded, and he looked upon as a good-for-nothing. Damn. They're really going to dog him like that. The stepdaughter, who was not only exceedingly pretty, but was as sweet as an angel, was found fault with on all occasions, and her life was made utterly miserable. It is, after all, but natural to love one's own children better than those of others. But the feeling of love should be governed by the laws of fairness. Now, this wicked woman was blind to the faults of the child she loved, and to the good quality of her husband's children, whom she hated. Okay, got it. So we're setting up the story here, not only to set the stage that we have the classic evil stepmother trope, but the Hansel and Gretel characters, we don't know their names, but you know what I'm saying. Symbolically, the Hansel and Gretel archetype are hot. That's supposed to be an extra layer for us to like them as the listener. I just personally, I always think that's such a funny extra added layer. Who cares who's hot and who's not? I care about the merit of the characters, but I just feel the storyteller was no, Hansel and Gretel were hot and the stepmom and her daughter were mid, and that makes them so much more hateable. Maybe that's kind of what I'm smelling here. That's the influence I'm smelling, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So, when in a bad temper, the rich widow was fond of boasting of the handsome fortune she intended securing for her own daughter, even though the stepchildren should be provided for. But, as the old proverb says, man proposes, but God disposes. I've never heard that one. That's actually really good. Man proposes, but God disposes. We shall therefore see how things turned out. Yes, we shall. I'm honestly loving this. Okay. One Sunday morning, before going to church, The stepdaughter went into the garden to pick some flowers for decorating the altar. Oh, we love her. She had only gathered a few roses when, looking up, she saw quite close to her 3 young men robed in dazzling white garments. They sat on a bench shaded by shrubbery. Sorry, it said shrubs, but I had to say shrubbery. While near them was an old man who asked her for alms. Who are these boys? She felt rather nervous before the strangers, but when she saw the old man, she took her last penny from her purse and gave it to him. She's a really nice pepper. We like her. The old man thanked her, and raising his hand over the girl's head, said to the men, "This orphan girl is pious, patient under misfortune, and kind to the poor, with whom she shares the little she has. Tell me what you wish for her." The first man said, "I wish that when she weeps, her tears may be changed into so many pearls." What a beautiful wish. I wish that upon you. Whoever you are listening, I wish that upon you. "And I," the second replied, "I wish that when she smiles, sweet roses may fall from her lips." Wait, this is crazy. This is literally like the Peri princess from the story I was mentioning. She would cry pearls and roses would fall from her lips. Is this like a magical thing that was associated with like magical creatures in the ancient world? This is fascinating. Okay. "My wish," said the third man, "is that whenever she dips her hands into water, there shall appear in it shining gold fish." Ooh, that's a new one. I like that. Okay, these are great wishes, boys. You wish. If you asked a boy today what he wished for a nice girl, please. Please. The creativity, the kindness, the beauty, I approve. "All these gifts shall be hers," said the old man, and with these words they vanished. The maiden was filled with awe and fell on her knees in prayer. Then her heart was filled with joy and peace, and she went back into the house. She had scarcely crossed the threshold when her stepmother came forward, and looking at her sternly said, "Well, where have you been?" The poor child began to cry, when, marvel of marvels, instead of tears, pearls fell from her eyes. Yes, sign me up. Notwithstanding her rage, the stepmother picked them up as quickly as possible, while the girl smiled as she watched. And as she smiled, roses fell from her lips, and her stepmother was beside herself with delight. The girl then went to put the flowers she had gathered in water, and as she dipped her fingers in the water while arranging them, pretty little gold fish appeared in the bowl. This is so magic. From that day, these marvels were constantly occurring. The tears were changed into pearls, the smiles scattered roses, and the water, even if she dipped but the tip of her fingers in, was filled with gold fish. The stepmother softened and became more gentle, while little by little she managed to draw from her stepchild the secret of these gifts. Yeah, like, come on. You're not actually being nice. You just want my pearls, dude. I hate this trope. You're fake as fuck, dude. So, the next Sunday morning, she sent her own daughter into the garden to gather flowers under the pretense of her getting the flowers for the altar. When the daughter had picked a few flowers, she raised her eyes and saw the 3 young men sitting on a low seat, while near them stood the little old man with white hair begging for alms. She pretended to be shy before the young men, but the beggar's request drew from her pocket a gold piece and gave it to him, evidently much against her will. He put it in his pocket and, turning to his companion, said, "This girl is the spoiled child of her mother. She is bad-tempered and naughty, while her heart is hardened against the poor. It is easy to understand why, for the first time in her life, she has been so generous today. Tell me, what gifts would you wish me to bestow upon her?" The first man said, "May her tears be changed into lizards." "And her smile produce hideous toads," added the second man. "And when her hands touch the water, may it be filled with serpents," said the third. "And let it be," cried the old man, and they all vanished. Damn. That's brutal, dude. Okay, I can't wait to see what happens. Oh, I'm hooked. This is a good one. The poor girl was terrified and went back to tell her mother what had happened. And it was even so, for if she smiled, hideous toads fell from her mouth. Her tears were changed into lizards, and the water in which she dipped but the tips of her fingers was filled with serpents. The stepmother was in despair, but she only loved her child the more and hated the orphans with yet a more bitter hatred. Indeed, she worried them to such an extent that the boy determined to put up with it no longer, but to seek his fortune elsewhere. So he tied up his belongings in a handkerchief and took a loving farewell of his sister, commending her to God's care, and left his home. Oh my God, he tied up his belongings in a handkerchief. Do you think he tied it to a stick like the old hobo thing in all the cartoons? That's what I'm picturing. But it's he's Hansel. Hansel's so hot right now. Okay, the great world lay before him, but which path to take he knew not. Turning to the cemetery where his parents lay side by side, he wept and prayed. He kissed the earth that covered them 3 times and set off on his travels. At that moment he felt something hard in the folds of his tunic and pressing on his heart. Wondering what it could be, he put in his hand and drew thence a charming portrait of his dearly loved sister, surrounded with pearls, roses, and gold fish. So great was his astonishment, he could hardly believe his eyes. But he was very happy and kissed the picture over and over again. Then, with one more look at the cemetery, he made the sign of the cross and departed. Now, a beautiful story is soon told, but the acts of which it is sung pass more slowly. After many adventures of little importance, he reached the capital of a kingdom by the sea, and there obtained the post of an under-gardener at the royal palace, with good food and wages. In his prosperity, he did not forget his unhappy sister, for he felt very uneasy about her. When he had a few moments to himself, he would sit down in some retired spot and gaze upon her portrait with a sad heart and eyes filled with tears. For the picture was a faithful likeness of her, and he looked upon it as a gift from his parents. Now, the king had noticed this habit of his, and one day, while he sat by a stream looking at the picture, the king came quietly behind him and glanced over his shoulder to see what he was so attentively regarding. "Give me that portrait," said the monarch. The boy handed it to him, and the king examined it closely, and admiring it greatly, he said, "I have never seen such a beautiful face in all my life, never even dreamed of such loveliness. Come, tell me, is this the original of the picture living?" The lad burst into tears and told him it was the living image of his sister, who a short time since had received a special mark of favor from God, that her tears should be changed into pearls, her smiles into roses, and the touch of her hands in waters should produce beautiful gold fish. The king commanded him to write to his stepmother at once and bid her send her lovely stepdaughter to the chapel of the palace, where the king would be waiting to marry her. The letter also contained promises of special royal favors. The lad wrote the letter, which the king sent by a special messenger. Now, a good story is soon told, but the deeds of which it is the sum are not performed so quickly. Ooh, this is so intriguing. When the stepmother received the letter, she determined to say nothing about it to her stepchild, but she showed it to her own daughter and talked the matter over with her. Damn, this bitch. Then she went to learn of the art of sorcery from a witch. Stop. Honestly, this stepmom, I just went from hating her to to loving her. She's like, okay, cool, we're gonna pivot. My daughter's gonna marry the king, and I'm gonna go learn sorcery. Oh my god. Okay, let's start this sentence over because I love this sentence. Then she went to learn the art of sorcery from a witch, and having found out all that was necessary to know, set off with both of the girls. Okay. Like, literally? What? It's okay. This is really clear that whoever, yeah, sorry, but she just learned all she needed to know. Like in how long? A day? An hour? Did she read a pamphlet? Can we learn more about the apprenticeship with the witch, please? That's what I want to learn. This is my biggest pet peeve. I feel like since the Abrahamic religions have taken over the world, there's been so much less emphasis on the magic aspects of stories, and I feel like maybe I'm just making an assumption, but I feel like way back in the day, we're talking thousands of years ago, that it was more likely that stories actually talked about those magical details. You're really gonna say that she went to go consult a witch to learn the art of sorcery, and then after she learned all she needed to know, she left? What? That was one sentence. That could be the whole story to me. You could just set up really quickly that there's an evil stepmom and she wants her daughter to marry the king. Let's hear the story about the art of sorcery, please. Hello? Come on, people. Okay. On approaching the capital, the wicked woman pushed her stepchild out of the carriage and repeated some magic words over her. After this, she became very small and covered with feathers. Then in a moment, she was changed into a wild duck. She began to quack and made for the water as ducks do, and swam to a far distance. The stepmother bade her farewell in the following words: "By the strength of my hate, may my will be fulfilled. Swim about the banks in the form of a duck, and rejoice in thy liberty. During that time my daughter shall take thy form, shall marry the king, and shall enjoy the good fortune fate destined for thee." I mean, obviously, I'm not going to blame the witch, because I feel like the witch who taught her may have already warned her this, but if you do anything out of hate, I mean, this isn't even just a witchcraft thing or a sorcery thing. This is just a life thing. If you do anything out of hate, it always goes wrong. It always goes wrong, because hate is a structure of chaos, and it creates chaos. This is why they always say love is the most powerful spell. Love is structurally sound. It's a beautiful structure of sacred geometry and beauty. It's real pretty, and it's nice, and it's cooperative. And when you send things out with the energy of cooperation, it is bound to work. Maybe not in the way you expected, but it creates cooperation, which creates growth and creates the manifestations that you want. And that's my PSA for the world. Don't be doing shit out of hate. it's a waste of time for you and everyone. And we all know that this is going to backfire on this bitch. But this is a hateful plan. This is super, super hateful. And I do, as a villain, I do respect that she's really like a self-made, like she's like, I'm going to learn the art of sorcery if that's what it takes. And she did. So I'm kind of loving that. At the conclusion of these words, her own child became endowed with all the graces and beauty of her unfortunate stepsister. The two then continued their journey, arriving at the royal chapel at the appointed hour. The king received them with all honors, while the deceitful woman gave away her own daughter, whom the bridegroom believed to be the original of the beautiful picture. After the ceremony, the mother went away loaded with presents. The king, as he looked at his wife, could not understand why he did not feel for her the sympathy and admiration that he had felt for the portrait she so much resembled. But it could not be altered now. What is done is done. So he admired her beauty and looked forward to the pleasure of seeing pearls fall from her eyes, roses from her lips, and gold fish at the touch of her fingers. This is going to be a rude awakening. During the wedding feast, the newly made bride forgot herself and smiled at her husband. Immediately, a number of hideous toads escaped from her lips. The king, overcome with horror and disgust, rushed away from her, upon which she began to cry, but instead of pearls, lizards fell from her eye. A servant ordered water to be brought for her to wash her hands, but no sooner had she dipped the tips of her finger in the bowl than it was immediately filled with serpents that hissed and twisted and threw themselves among the wedding guests. The panic was general, and a scene of great confusion followed. The guard was called in and had the greatest trouble to clear the hall of the disgusting reptiles. Wouldn't it be fun in like an alternate universe if like the king was like hella freaky and weird and was like a reptile freak and was like, cool, is that a poisonous toad from like, what if he like started identifying the toads and was like, oh, is that a black mamba? That's cool. I honestly need to start writing stories because I really would put freaky twists in, Like what if the twist is that like the king is an asshole because he's a fucking monarch and like he and the shitty stepsister is like they're like a perfect match and they're just like reptiles, cool. Okay, well obviously we know it's not going there. Okay. The bridegroom had taken refuge in the garden, and when he saw the young man coming towards him, whom he thought had deceived him, his anger overcame him, and he struck the poor lad with so much force that he fell down dead. Oh my God! The queen ran forward sobbing and taking the king by the hand. She said, "What have you done? You have killed my innocent brother. It is neither my fault nor was it his, that since the wedding I have by some enchantment lost the marvelous power I possessed before. This evil will pass away in time, but time can never restore to me my dear brother, my own mother's son." Damn, this bitch is trifling. "Forgive me, dear wife. In a moment of irritation, I thought he had deceived me, and I wanted to punish him, but I did not mean to kill. I regret it deeply, but it cannot be helped now. Forgive me my fault as I forgive yours with all my heart." Bro, what? That's not gonna cut it. Sorry that I accidentally killed your brother? Like, no, dude. Like, what? This is kind of what I'm saying. Like, the king is giving spoiled child, and I feel like maybe he actually is a perfect match for the shitty sister. You know what I'm saying? This is not gonna cut it. Okay. You have my forgiveness, but I beg you to see that your wife's brother has an honorable burial. Yeah. Her wishes were carried out, and the orphan lad who had passed as her brother was laid in a handsome coffin. The chapel was hung with black, and at night a guard was placed both inside and out. Towards midnight, the church doors silently opened, and while the guards were overcome by sleep, a pretty little duck entered unnoticed. Here we go. Here's our girl. She stopped in the middle of the aisle, shook herself, and pulled out her feathers one by one. Ooh, it's like a black swan moment. Then it took the form of the beautiful stepdaughter, for it was she. She went up to her brother's coffin and stood gazing at him. And she looked and she wept sorrowfully. Then she put on her fingers again. Oh, she put on her feathers again. Whoa. She put on her feathers again and went out as a duck. When the guards awoke, they were astonished to find a quantity of fine pearls in the coffin. The next day they told the king that the doors had opened of themselves towards midnight, and that they had been overcome by sleep, and that on awakening they had found a large number of pearls in the coffin, but knew not how they got there. The king was very much surprised, especially at the appearance of the pearls, and thought to have been produced by his wife's tears. On the second night he doubled the guard and impressed upon them the necessity for watchfulness. At midnight the doors again opened silently as before. The soldiers went to sleep, and the same little duck entered, and taking out her feathers, appeared as a lovely maiden. She could not help smiling as she looked upon the sleeping soldiers, the number of which had been doubled on her account, and she smiled, and a number of roses fell from her lips. As she drew near her brother, her tears fell in torrents, leaving a profusion of fine pearls. After some time, she put on her feathers and went out as a duck. When the guards awoke, they took the roses and the pearls to the king. He was still more surprised to see roses with the pearls, for these roses should have fallen from his wife's lips. He again increased the number of the guard and threatened them with the most severe punishment if they failed to watch all night. Bro, why can't you just watch? Whatever. They did their best to obey, but in vain. They could only sleep. When they awoke, they found not only roses and pearls, but little gold fish swimming in the holy water. The amazed king could only conclude that their sleep was caused by magic. On the fourth night, he not only increased the number of soldiers, but, unknown to everyone, hid himself behind the altar. Thank you, now you're thinking. Where he hung a mirror, through which he could see everything that passed without being seen. Yeah, see, now we're talking. Now we're using our noggin, playboy. Okay, at midnight, the doors opened. The soldiers, under the influence of sleep, had let fall their arms and lay on the ground. The king kept his eyes fixed on the mirror, through which he saw a little wild duck enter. It looked timidly round on all sides, then, reassured at the sight of the sleeping guards, advanced to the center of the nave and took off its feathers, thus appearing as a young maiden of exquisite beauty. I'm also assuming that she's buck naked right now. And so the king is like, he's probably super turned on. The king, overwhelmed with joy and admiration, and a boner, had I don't know this word. A presentiment? What's a presentiment? I don't know. Can we Google it? Presentiment. What is a presentiment? Intuitive feeling about the future. Presentiment. Oh, because I was reading it wrong. Presentiment. Presentiment. Okay. I feel like I know that word. Presentiment. I never really used that word. Okay, that's a really good word. Okay. The king, overwhelmed with joy and admiration, had a presentiment that this was his true bride. So when she drew near the coffin, he crept noiselessly out of his hiding place, and with a lighted taper set fire to the feathers. They flared up immediately, and with such a bright light that the soldiers were aroused. The girl ran towards the monarch, wringing her hands and weeping tears of pearls. "What have you done?" cried she. "How can I now escape my stepmother's vengeance? For it is by her magic that I have been changed into a wild duck." When the king had heard all, he ordered some of his soldiers to seize the wife he had married and to take her right out of the country. He sent others to take the wicked stepmother prisoner and to burn her as a witch. Okay. See, and this is the issue, you guys. Like, I have to stand back up on my soapbox again, because they always want to tell stories about people who use sorcery for hate. And it's kind of like when one person makes it a mistake and it ruins it for the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? Like when one kid that was a gross analogy. I'm not even going to say it. What I'm getting at is one person can ruin the party for the rest of us. And of course, there have been many individuals throughout time who were overcome with jealousy or revenge. And maybe that revenge was actually understandable. Let's say this person had experienced terrible abuse and trauma. I don't fault people for wanting revenge. However, when you start playing with dark magic, you're splitting your soul into pieces and you're setting out hatred, which I mentioned is a chaotic molecule, if you will. And so it creates chaos and creates unrest. And then ultimately people fear you and they don't want you around because you've been an asshole. And this is why we need to fix assholism, because assholism is contagious. It spreads like a virus. I'm telling you guys, it's really fucking hard, because what do you do if you are a person that have had the most difficult life and people have been incredibly abusive to you? Like, of course, I don't know what that means for you to heal from that and forgive them, because it's probably the hardest thing to do. But if we can, and if we can release hate and resentment, then possibly we can move forward and create a new way where we're not raising kids that are being assholes to each other and whatever, hurting each other, torturing each other, burning each other as witches. Like, I'm sorry. Even though the stepmom was hella mean, like, do we have to burn her alive? I would vote no. Like, what if we gave her therapy and then we learned her sorcery and used it to I don't know, feed the peasants of the kingdom and find more suitable ways to create an agriculture system that doesn't need monoculture farming but feeds the masses? I'm just spitballing here, okay? But these are just creative ways to use sorcery that are a little bit different than burning each other at the stake, okay? Okay. Okay, so both commands were instantly carried out. The commands being that the stepsister was exiled from the country and the stepmother would be burned as a witch. Meanwhile, the girl drew from the folds of her gown 3 small bottles filled with 3 different kinds of water, which she had brought from the sea. The first possessed the virtue of restoring life. This she sprinkled over her brother, whereupon the chill and rigidity of death disappeared. The color came into his face, and the warm red blood flowed from his wound. Okay, is that not witchcraft? Is the king gonna burn her at the stake? Like, come on, people. Come on. Upon the wound, she poured water from the second bottle, and it was immediately healed. When she had made use of the third kind of water, he opened his eyes. He looked at her with astonishment, and he threw himself joyfully into her arms. The king, enraptured at this sight, conducted the two back to the palace. So instead of a funeral, there was a wedding, to which a large number of guests were immediately invited. Thus the orphan maid was married to the king, while her brother became one of his majesty's nobles. And the magnificence of the wedding feast was greater than anything seen or heard of. And that is the story of Tears of Pearls. That was really cute, don't you think? I think that was really nice. That was really precious. I just get so triggered by how much like murder there is in these old stories. Like, I grew up watching action movies, so of course, like, I do get like the entertainment value in a story where there's just like action and murder, and like it there's something about it that's like what's the word, like exciting, or like it's like drama kind of. But it is like I really do reflect on the medieval era, and of course, like I feel like medieval Europe was particularly dark. I mean, it's literally called the Dark Ages because it was so, the quality of life was so poor. But, you know, due to the nature of colonization, even though white people are a minority on planet Earth, I think the population of white people is like less than 20%. It's like 8% or something. Don't quote me on that. But it's interesting how much European culture has affected the whole world due to the nature of colonization. And I really think about, in European culture, the legacy of the Dark Ages and the legacy of the medieval era. Because you have people, like the infant mortality rate was something like 60-70%. People did not have access to fresh water because they didn't know anything about fresh water. People were people were peeing and pooping everywhere. People were drinking ale and wine instead of water. Most peasants were just eating stale bread and beer their whole life. And on a good day, they would get like a piece of jerky or meat. And like, think about what that does to your mental health. You're only eating like stale bread and beer. That's wheat. That's not enough nutrition. And then you have this whole feudal system, which is basically a caste system. You have cold winters. I mean, it's just, and then people are torturing each other and dismembering each other, burning people alive. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unimaginable how terrifying and traumatizing these lives would be. And what are you supposed to do? You know, like how does one create social change in such a structure? Because they'll just murder you. It sounds like ice skating up a hill. And so I just have a lot of compassion for the whole world and for Europeans, because colonization is like so dark, and it's actually nauseating when I think about it for too long. But if you really think about the psychology behind these people, it's like, right, like, has anyone on a mass scale like really done the work to unpack what their genetic trauma is, to come from hundreds of years of dismembering and stigma and fear and a caste system? Like I see it play out in the modern day. I see it play out in the social structures that in the United States have been inherited from England, but the social structures of, for example, South Africa that inherited colonization from the Dutch. I mean, like, it's rampant all over the world. And of course, every culture has a slightly different criteria of what makes one higher ranking or not. But there is an addiction to ranking each other, and I don't necessarily think that it's natural. I obviously think that, similar to ants, like I think humans they operate as a colony, they operate as a pack. And I definitely think that, perhaps rank in the sense of there being like a father, a symbolic father or mother or guardian of the community would be in place. But I would like to think that naturally that would be an elder. That person would not be in charge as much as they would be an advisor, a protector, a teacher to the community, simply because they've lived longer, they've seen more. They know the cycle of time. They know about the harvests and the planting season. They know about the cycles of children and the cycles of life. That's why they're in charge. It's not about fucking like money and like, whatever. These are just the things I think about, because in a perfect world, let's say like every single person on planet Earth right now said, yeah, let's make a change. Like, let's stop murdering each other and let's basically like all, get therapy or, whatever that means to heal ourselves. Like, what is that? What would we do? Because even therapy, I have an amazing therapist. Love her. I've also spoken with therapists that had no business being therapists. And I also think that there's a lot of people who are therapists who are amazing and have the best intentions, but they don't necessarily have the qualifications to be anyone's therapist. And what I mean by that is like, what about the people who've experienced some of the most horrifying things on earth? Or people that have actually committed things that are horrific? What do we do when these people actually reach out for help and reach out to change, right? This is like a hypothetical scenario, but that's just like kind of what I think about. What would we do on the day when everyone decides that they want something different, and what they want is a human community of cooperation and kindness? When I think about that, it helps me get more compassion for people, because I don't have an answer. I don't know what we would do. I don't know what kind of help and therapy that people need to heal from the unimaginable horrors that their ancestors lived through and or that they lived through firsthand. And so let's not burn each other at the stake. Let's not drop bombs on each other. Let's not drop poisonous substances on each other. Let's not kill children. Let's not kill adults. Like, let's really try our best. I understand that conflict is unavoidable, but conflict can be an opportunity to create connection. That is nonviolent communication 101. I feel like that, maybe I'm going to get like a little bit far out right now, but I think a lot about communication, and the throat chakra is an energy point in your throat that is about communication. And I think when we think about communication, we often focus on us communicating to someone else, us communicating to the outside world. But there's an aspect of the throat that isn't just about communicating to the world. It's also about being able to communicate truth. And so really what the throat is about is actually your ability to connect with yourself, and your ability to decipher through the feelings, the sensations of your body, the feelings within your heart, and the thoughts within your mind, and the desires of your soul. And your throat's job energetically is to actually experience those sensations and to be able to speak truth. And that doesn't mean to say the truth with your mouth. That's the last step. It's actually about being honest with yourself. And I don't know why I brought that up, but I'm just getting on a long tangent. I just really wish for everyone that we can all start really being more present in our bodies and more present with ourselves. Because I do believe that part of why this trajectory has persisted of us on this downward spiral of destruction and violence against each other is because we have numbed ourselves from who we are. My experience of a lot of people from westernized countries, for example, the United States, is a lot of people don't even know what that means, the desires of their soul. I think a lot of them don't even necessarily think they have a soul. Some of them may think it's made up. I think a lot of people aren't able to really listen to the sensations of their body and take those in as intuition. I think a lot of people, their heart and their mind fight each other, and they struggle to find ways to sit in peace with themselves and to be able to feel what is right for them, you know? And I truly believe that deep down, on a spiritual level, killing other human beings doesn't feel right for anyone. I truly believe that. But I do know that weird things can happen, especially when you have opened yourself for other entities to enter. You know, maybe we should do an episode on that. Should we do an episode on entity possession? Because I have my own stories, and I'm telling you, that shit it's wild, wild, wild. You know, I have a friend whose mom did exorcisms growing up. So he like knows a lot about exorcisms and has seen a few of them. Maybe we could get him on the podcast. I'll see what I can do. Anyway, thank you for listening. I had so much fun learning of the story of Tears of Pearls. I have nothing but love and appreciation for you. I hope that you have the most beautiful day. If you like my podcast, please like, subscribe, write a comment. Please email in, buy yourself a t-shirt. You're wonderful. Have a beautiful day. Over and out.